All right, folks, it's Jake here from Wani, and we're here with none other than Niilo Sevanen from Insomnium to discuss Insomnium's newest album, Anno 1696. Niilo, how are you going today?
Thank you, Jake. All good here, and nice to talk about the new album with you.
Yeah, so you guys do have a new album coming out in February next year. February 24th is the release. How's it feel to be releasing new music, obviously off the end of a tough couple of years?
Yeah, when the pandemic started, we started working with new music right away. We did Argent Moon EP, 4 songs, a bit more, mellow ballad kind of material. It was on purpose like that. So plan was already that we'll continue working full album next, and it's going to be traditional heavy metal, Insomnium, dark and heavy again. So if some folks thought that, okay, guys got soft now with Argent Moon, I think that's not the case, and we're still Insomnium.
Yeah, and look, I've listened to the album, and I've got to say, I think it's probably some of the heaviest material that you guys have done for probably almost a decade now. There's a lot of songs that are sort of really, that have that ferocity that sort of throw back to the very early days. Was that something that you guys really wanted to sort of play? And obviously it's still melodic, and there's still the melancholy that you guys are known for, but it has this real oomph and power that's sort of coming from this harsh side, and I think it sounds great. Is that something that you guys had sort of planned for this one?
Yeah, well, it's a concept album, and I had this idea of this kind of story already, like before the pandemic started, and I talked with the guys at that point, but okay, things changed. We did Argent Moon, but after that, we started thinking about the full album, and I had this story set in the year 1696 in my head, and then I wrote the short story, and then we started making music that would fit this kind of very dark and tragic story. And so it is like that on purpose. I think it fits the mood of the story really well. Not too happy material. Like first single, Lillian, is probably the happiest sounding song, lightest song on the whole album. So it might give a little bit kind of wrong impression of the whole thing, but next video single is going to be White Christ, so it shows a totally different kind of side of the album already.
Yeah, and so like just going back to something that you mentioned before, like it is the story that the album is based on is a concept story that you have written. Can you share with us a little bit about what the story is about? So I've read through it. It's a pretty involved story, even for a short story. It's a pretty involved story. It sort of changes chapter based on the character who is viewing each chapter, similar to Game of Thrones for those who have read Game of Thrones. But can you give us a brief rundown of the story for those who may not have heard anything about it yet?
Yeah. So there's a historical setting. The 17th century Europe was really dark place full of contrasts. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's a very interesting period, but very dramatic as well. Like witch hunts were raging in all across Europe, but at that point they were also already kind of dying out in Central Europe, in France, England, Germany. But in the dark north, Sweden and Finland, we were the kind of very poor and distant place, outskirts of the map. So really a dark place at that point, and we were still burning witches and beheading innocent people, accusing them of witchcraft. So it's a dark period. And also in the northern countries, those couple of years, 1696, 97, were especially dark because there were a couple of years which were really cold. All the harvest was lost. People got nothing to eat. So practically like 1/3 of the population died in a couple of years in Finland. So there is hunger and darkness all over the place. So it's a very dramatic setting for the story. And of course, I don't want to spoil anything from the story, but it starts in this remote village, and there's this woman accused of witchcraft and murdering her family, and that's where the investigation starts and things start to roll.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, this obviously isn't the first concept album that you guys have done that's been based on one of your works. Obviously, you did Winter's Gate a few years ago, and that being based off your earlier work, Talvin Porti. Do you find that many of your works or short stories might have some sort of overlap with the music that Insomnium does, or is it just that you've picked these ones which have sort of had that little bit of closeness that you might have been able to adapt into a concept album?
Like the Winter's Gate story, originally it was something I just wrote. It wasn't meant for Insomnium in the beginning, but then after some years I thought, okay, actually this story might fit Insomnium. It has this darkness and same kind of mood that we usually have. But with this new story now, I on purpose wrote it for Insomnium. So, but of course our lyrics are often very tragic, and I usually write them as small tales. So each song tells us a small story, usually. That's how it works. So now I just made a bigger story that spans the whole album, and actually there's 11 songs that we're gonna release now, which tell the same story. So that's the way I like to work, because I like to write. That's my other passion besides making music. So it's perfect for me. I can combine these big things here.
Yeah, no, that is good. And it's good and interesting that you touched on that you're doing 11 songs, because I know the album's only 8 songs long, and you've got the 3 songs that are coming out on the Songs of the Dusk EP that sort of complete the story. Was there any reason why those songs didn't make the album? Was it length, or is it just that they were just truly additional items that you guys had finished that sort of closed everything out for you?
Well, it was kind of a last minute call at which songs are actually going to be on the album, I think, and we had to vote for it. So I would say we really have 11 strong songs, so it was very difficult to decide that, okay, which are not going to make it on the standard version, because it would have been too long. I think it would have been over 70 minutes, 11 songs, and that's a lot of music for anyone to digest on one go. So we decided, okay, it's better to have the normal album, which is under 1 hour, and then we have these extra material that people can also digest and listen separately. But it wasn't an easy decision, and I had to plan the story so that each song tells a different part there. So but it's always wheeling and dealing when you finalize the album, and there's always some argument that which songs are going to make it and what's the song order and stuff like that. But I think everybody was happy in the end of the way we did this.
Yeah, and I think it's good that you guys are still releasing those songs as well. And as you sort of touched on, it is still a long album for only being 8 tracks. I think there's only one song that is short of the 4-minute mark. I think the average runtime for most songs is about 7 or 8 minutes long. Do you find it easier when you're writing those longer songs? Obviously, Insomnium tends to write longer songs, but is it easier for you guys to tell your story in writing those longer songs?
Well, it comes very naturally for us. Like, we usually don't decide in advance that, okay, we need to have a 3-minute song or we need to make a 10-minute song. They just grow very organically. And I think with the recent albums we've done, I think we've moved even further to this kind of a cinematic soundscapes. So it's epic and kind of long themes that we like to repeat and vary with different arrangements and stuff like that. So kind of keeping in this kind of certain kind of atmosphere for a longer time. So I think we have went that way a bit compared to the earlier days when it's more like standard kind of melodic songs where there's verse and chorus and verse number 2 and chorus and then the C section and something. And nowadays we're a bit more progressive and the songs are longer, but it's a very natural progression. We haven't done it on purpose.
Yeah, and it sort of has been a very natural progression for you guys, the way that sound's transitioned over the years. So that's good to hear. This is the second album with Yani as a member of the band. How much did Yani bring to this particular album? Obviously, he's a very well-established songwriter. I think there are a few places where I'm able to hear his influence a little bit. So I'm just curious to know what his sort of contribution has been like, being one of the newer members of the band, even though he's been around for a while now.
Yeah, I think Yani has found his place, and like each new member, like both Marcus Vanhala before Yani and now Yani, they kind of quickly found their place in the band, and they're really professional guys and they're great composers, and kind of they know what the band is about, what's the sound of Insomnium. They're not trying to change it to something totally different, but they immediately knew how to adapt to it and how to compose music that sounds like Insomnium. Of course, we always want to bring new, fresh elements to our music, but it still should sound like Insomnium. And Yani has succeeded in that very well. And on this album, like Marcus Vanhala composed the most, and then I think Ville and me and Yani, we all pretty equally composed something there. So it's a group effort again. And the shortest song, the ballad, The Unrest, that's Yani's song. Yep. And then one of the longer ones, Starless Paths, that's mine and Yani's co-work. And so Yani has been involved a lot.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say Starless Paths, because that was definitely the one where I could sort of feel his influence in there a little bit. So that's good to hear. Yeah. As I said earlier, this album is a lot heavier than people may be expecting from you guys, particularly off the back of the last couple of albums. What do you think is, I guess, the way that you would describe this album to someone who may not have heard you guys before? Like, how would you describe it musically?
Oh, this is so difficult. Like I think we have moved past the point where we can just say that we're just a melodic band, or it's getting like harder and harder to label us. I feel like that you always have to add with progressive elements and some black metal twists and some cinematic atmospheric stuff going on. So it's dark and dramatic metal music for sure, but it's getting more harder and harder to categorize it.
Maybe we need to start that off. Maybe dark and dramatic metal is a new category for Insomnium, because I agree with you. And as you sort of touched on there, like the black metal influences, you've got a couple of guest appearances on this album, Sakis Tolis on there as just one. What was it like? Did you guys, I guess, plan to have these particular individuals, or was this just songs that you had created and you thought this person would really enhance this song for us?
The latter. it always, the music comes first and the song first, and then if you get the feeling that, okay, now for the first time we used female vocals in Insomnium history in God Forsaken, and originally in the demo version it was it was some sample that Markus Vanhala used just to demo the idea. But when we got Johanna Kurkala, she's a renowned Finnish singer, amazing singer. When she did her own thing there, the song became much cooler. She enhanced the whole thing. It became much cooler. But it's still a special thing, something that exactly fits that song. Like we have no intention of becoming Nightwish or something like that. It was just this one song. And also with White Christ and Sakistolis, it started as a joke because the song has this Rotting Christ feeling. So the demo version was titled Sakis something, and then we joked about it that we should actually ask Mr. Sakis to feature on it. And then, as often happens, the joke moves further, and we really asked him, and it became awesome stuff. And he was really happy, and it became one of the best songs, coolest songs on the album. So that's how things work.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, you guys are saying that you're including the female vocals for the first time. It's sort of, particularly with that track, it sort of lulls you into a certain sense that this song is going to be something different to what it is. And then as soon as everything kicks in and the music sweeps in over the top, it really transforms into something different. So the guest features are used to good effect, and I think that you guys have done it very tastefully on both occasions here. So
thank you. Good to hear.
So, album is coming out 24th of February. You've got a release show that's planned. Obviously, we're at the back of the pandemic now, and touring is kicking off again. Have you got big plans of taking this album around the world?
Yes, we have. And quite soon we have some tour news. So shortly we will release some tour news, and of course the plan is to visit all the places possible. If the plague doesn't hit or the World War III begin, which is also likely, or not likely, but possibility. But let's hope we get to play all the cool places and get to Australia as well, which would be awesome.
Is there anywhere that you guys haven't toured yet that you would like to take Anno 1696?
Well, we've never been in South America. So there are many countries there that would be cool to visit.
All right. So South American promoters, get in touch because the band wants to go down there. Okay. That's pretty much all that I had for you, Niilo. Is there anything else that you would like to say or discuss about the album? Things that you think that the fans may need to know about it from your point of view? Obviously, it's a work that's close to your heart, given that it has been adapted from one of your stories. Is there something that you can share with the fans that they might want to, I guess, keep an eye on or think about when they're listening to it?
Well, one guest is worth mentioning, of course. This time the keyboards were done by Mr. Koen Janssen from Epica. So that's new collaboration for us. Alexi Munter, who has previously done our keyboards, he wasn't able to work on this album, so we asked Koen, and I think he did marvelous job. And right away enough to the Insomnium mindset. So it was really easy working with him. And yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, it's interesting that you say that because I hadn't picked up on that, but now I'm going to go back and listen to it again. And take it in, because it did sound very much like Alexi. So he's obviously gotten straight into that mindset straight away and thrown everything down that is in line with what Insomnium is all about. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, I'm quite sure that if we don't point it out, nobody will pay any attention that the keyboards would be somehow different than before.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Great.
All right, Niilo, thank you very much. That's all that we've got in terms of the interview. So yeah.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.